So I'm Magnus Lundgren. I'm from Ericsson. I'm actually most interested in the connected car, and that's what I run. It's very exciting times here, and I love to be here in Las Vegas. M2M evolution. I'm going to talk about M2M and how that's evolved into what we call the network society. We heard a panel this morning. I mean, machine to machine, Internet of Things. There's so many things going on, and there's so many aspects to look at this. And I'm going to use the connected car as one example on how that's going to transform that whole industry. Because we say this, you know, when one person connects, their world changes. But when everything gets connected, our world changed. And we are just in the beginning of this. This will be amazing. I mean, the transformation of industries, the transformation of society, the transformation of, you know, business models, business impact that we'll have on all industries. I mean, this will be so big. We haven't seen anything yet as far as we're concerned. And just to let you take a step back to get you to realize how fast this is all happening. I mean, when you live right in it, it's hard sometimes to see how fast this is going. We heard it also this morning. We talked about the 50 billion connected devices, but how long did that take actually? Well, so Ericsson has helped connecting places and people for a long time. It took basically 100 years. Ericsson was founded in 1874. It took about 100 years to connect 1 billion places. And I mean, I wasn't around 100 years ago, but I mean, the impact that had on everything, the business and how you can communicate and so on. I remember my dad always said when the fax machine came, that was a big thing for them. You know, rather than, you know, he did a lot of deals in the US, from Sweden, you know, sending the letters back and forth took forever. The fax was just amazing. And that was just connecting an impact that the billion places had on their business. And then, pretty quickly, with the mobile technology and the mobile phones, when they came out, it took about 25 years, roughly, to connect the 5 billion people. And the change that had on people and how people live their lives is so dramatic. You know, and I think this is what we should have in mind when we think about machine-to-machine and network society today. I remember mobile phones when they sort of came about and became popular. My sister at the time, she was you know, a single mother, and we say, well, basically, well, it could be good if you want to use a mobile in your car when you're on the highway home. It's dark in Sweden, winter time. If it breaks down, you can call. You know, so we talked about, you know, use cases for the phone, and yes, that would be good if you're moving around, you can use it. But you know, just last week, my sister, same sister, she tweeted, you know, brush my teeth, I'm going to bed. It's a vital piece of information she wanted to share with the community, but that wasn't really the use case we were thinking about when she got a mobile phone back in 1995. So the technology is similar, but you know, when you think about the use cases for the new technology, you sometimes are stuck a little bit in what you're doing today, and you want to move that, you know, a phone that is moving. And that's exactly the same things we will see now with the Ericsson projects are going to be 50 billion connected devices here by 2020. And you know, the time period is even shorter here. We're talking about 15 years. And the impact this will have is going to be enormous. And that's what we call the network society. I mean, if I do an analogy with my sister here, I mean, we talk about, you know, connected devices. You can think about, yeah, I have my health device, that's, you know, my wellness armrest, that's connected, it gets a little bit better, and so on. But if we connect all these different things together, it's going to be a tremendous change, I'll tell you. And I want to show you a little bit on what Ericsson is doing in this space. But why is this happening right now? Well, it's 3 major things that is happening right now. And I started Ericsson in 2007, and these 3 things, they weren't really in place at that time in the broader and bigger scale that we have today. It basically is the mobility. People want to do stuff moving around with the mobile broadband, with the high-speed internet you can get to devices today. And in many areas, and rural areas and so on. So the freedom of being anywhere is the power to access that thing or that device or yourself at any way, and also the cloud, the independence of actually the service you're going to give to the device or to the thing and share that with other industries in the cloud, remove the whole complexity about different devices. And when these three things come together, that's when it's really changing. So let's have a look. How is this machine-to-machine evolving into network society? So connected devices, so machine-to-machine, the basics has been actually around, as well as the mobile phone was around for a long time. And in the beginning here, you very much focus on the device itself. You know, what can you do? You can connect a device, you can wake it up, you can send some data, you can collect some data. You know, you have an application that is single-purposed to run this, and maybe you can import some information. But that's evolving very much. And where we are right now, you know, I don't know if this is the right term, the IoT beta, whatever, but this is really what's happening right now with the mobility, with the broadband, with the cloud. So now, businesses are very much business-driven. They create ecosystems around the connected devices because now they can do intelligent stuff with the devices. They can sort of talk to them in a better language. They can get information with high bandwidth. They can see in real time what these devices are doing. They can do, since they can bring this data, the analytics, I mean, big data, everybody's talking about big data. It's to a large extent a big analytics case that's going on. And this, I mean, it's every day in the papers how different industries are making their business more efficient based on how they connect their devices. And this is all, of course, happening in the cloud. You're removing the complexity of actually doing the computation in the cloud. And this is then evolving, moving forward into the network society. And this is when it really becomes interesting and things that is happening to some extent today, but really going to excel moving forward. And this is when you, with your business, you create the value for someone else to make business, and you together make business. You know, across value nets, you can create not only for your business, but for society as well. You make things work together. So you open up the access to your devices, access to your business for someone else to make business upon. And this also evolves the service-aware networks. I mean, we, Ericsson, of course, work very closely with the carriers of the world, and the impacts this will have on creating service-aware networks when the service to the device is depending on what kind of network service you have. So this was enough of theory. I like examples. So let's say on these three cases, the machine-to-machine was been around for the IoT beta and the network society, what that meant to the car industry. So Ericsson has launched a connected car together with Volvo Cars. And this is the, if you want to buy a car, by the way, I'm not getting a kickback, but this is roughly how the new XC90 is going to look that comes out this autumn. So you can see there in the center console there, this is a type of almost tablet-like kind of devices they have. So the devices themselves are capable enough of doing a lot of things today. But the cars, they've been connected for a very long time. So what did you do? I mean, what they call the telematics 1.0. You put a SIM inside a car, and now you can do very low bandwidth stuff for the last 10 years. And what is that? Basically, yeah, it's a use case that was before the machine-to-machine. You have a SOS button, if you crash, you can call that, or you had a button in there, you can have this is an on-call service, it's a concierge service. But that's, in the first step, is really by just taking a use case from the normal mobile network into the car, and not so much about evolving the industry as such, because you couldn't, because the bandwidth wasn't there, etc., and the device wasn't good enough. Another use case that sort of evolved now is when the mobile devices became good enough. So now you can still, with very low bandwidth, talk to the car. You can ask the car, where are you? You can send simple commands like open up the doors, or in Sweden, put on the heater, because I'm going to drive. Here, maybe in Las Vegas, you want to put on the cooler, and maybe have a air conditioning in your seats. I was told yesterday, I didn't know that existed. But still, this is very low bandwidth. But what happens now, and I think this is when the big change to the sort of IoT beta stage. The connected cars, a lot of cars have it, but how many of the automotive companies are actually going to be able to transform their business? Because when you get the broadband, when you get the identity of the car user, that's going to transform the business of owning a car and running it. So first of all, you want to run with your own ecosystems and increase that and improve your business. So obviously services. I mean, car ownership is just a nightmare. You want to service your car, you don't know what's going to happen. If and when, well actually what we actually with Ericsson had launched with Volvo, is when the car is connected, you can get all these parameters in for all the cars, and you bring that back in to do analytics on it, you can do predictive maintenance. So you can tell back to the car and the individual when you need the maintenance. So actually what we launched here with Volvo in the US is if you need a service, you get a suggestion for services in your car and on your mobile saying you need to get a service. Here are 3 suggested times to your preferred dealer or your closest dealer. Do you want to accept one of these times? And then you press yes. And if you do that, the service lamp will go off. The thing is, if you miss your appointment, the service lamp will go on again, and you need to find it, set a new appointment. And this, the partner ecosystem here is the X-Time repair shop network here in the US. So this is where the automotive industry connects very closely with the close partners in the old networks to make it better for you as an owner. And this is all again dependent on having the services in the cloud, so you can feed the data up, you can share this data with the repair shop, they know what parts is going to be available, they know to be ready when you're going to come and so on. Another very much interesting example in this space is the in-car payment of parking spots, also launched globally. And this is the same thing. It's a partner ecosystem. It's very close to the car parking, of course. You want to be able to know where there is a parking. You also want to be able to pay for that parking inside the car. So here you actually, together with Parkopedia, you can book a parking space, or you can actually street side parking. You put the car there. You just press payment of the car inside the dash, and that's also taken care of by your own credit card. And you can share that identity, and you can have that. And the thing is, if you think about this, people talk about in-car payment. It is actually not so much in-car payment. This is, now I was going to say it's just a device. The automotive industry hate when I say that the car is just a device. But the car payment is really in the cloud. I mean, the screen and the identity of the car and where you are location, that's all parameters that we take from the car, but we share this information with partners, with the network, partner ecosystems in the cloud. So it's more a cloud service than anything else, but it's used to you in your device, in your car. Now, what's going to happen moving forward, network society? I touched a little bit upon it before. I mean, network society is not only about connecting businesses, but it's also for the connecting the societies and the goods for everybody else. And the thing is, all these cars that are running around, they become, micro stations for the information. So this is one of the things we worked with, still close to the car industry. In Sweden, again, it's cold, it's icy, and all these cars that goes around, their cars are so intelligent, so they know if it's a slippery road. I mean, a car basically have 500 different parameters that is all connected into the data unit, and we send that up to the cloud. So here is that the car is going to tell each other when it's icy. So it's going to be a Volvo car can talk to any other Volvo car in the nearby, saying, hey, this is going to be an icy patch here moving forward, be aware. But it's also then aggregated and sent back to the Swedish road authorities so they can have a full view on where they need to go out with the snow plows or all the salting machines to where they put the salt. And this is for the greater good. But if you think about it, this becomes a little bit of an isolated business. It really needs to be open to anybody. I mean, cars need to talk to any car, regardless of which brand it is. Cars need to talk to any authority, any city planning for traffic planning, regardless of what city it is and so on. And that's really where we're going to move into forward in a network society. And here I'm going to tell you, and at one point here on the service-aware networks, if you think about these cars going around, talking to the network and saying, here is icy, here is not icy, that kind of performance needs to be handled by the carriers' networks as well. Today, if you just see cars always talking every 5th second, trying to get a new connections up to the network, that would be looked at as almost like an intrusion into the network, because that's not your normal behavior as an individual with your mobile phone. So here is where the carriers need to work very closely in working with the service-aware network, so that they know that these are devices that are moving around, that are sending a typical or a pattern of data that needs to be handled in a specific way, handled maybe closer out in the topology near to the highways and so on. And that's going to be a huge change for the carriers and how they're going to work with all these different types of data patterns that happens with the devices. And just to give you one more example here of across value nets, and I think this is interesting. This is when, I'm going to show you a little bit movie now. So think about it, this is the car. If you open up the APIs to the car, what can someone else do with it? Oh, there's no sound. Let's do it then. Yeah, stupid enough to be genius. That's what I like. But if you think about it, this is, I mean, opening the trunk of the car remotely, that was even back to the machine-to-machine days. That's just a command you send. But if you're able to open up that to someone else, and they can start using your car as a delivery point, or in this case, it's a person coming with your food delivery, but this could be drones. I mean, that could be a pure machine-to-machine, a drone from coming delivering pizzas to a car or a book or whatever. And this is not really a value network of the automotive industry, but it's someone else, and you can find a business. So whatever you have, or whatever assets you have, if you can expose this to someone else to make business of in a network society. So that was examples of the automotive. I just want to talk about what we're doing in Ericsson in many other cases, and to give you a sense of the breadth of effort we're putting into changing society. So there are an accelerating urbanization. I mean, 7,500 people are moving into the cities every hour, and by 2050, 70% going to live in cities. And this, of course, has a huge impact on businesses. Whatever you're going to do, you're going to transport food and other thing into these mega cities. You're going to be able to have a sustainable society with CO2 emissions and so on, and the energy is going to be very concentrated. You need to work with smart gridding and so on. And these are all things that we change with the network society and the connected devices. Of course, there's also waste that needs to be handled, and the pollution and so on. I'll give you now 3 examples of what we've done in this space in other industries, just to give you an example of showing that have similar situations like the automotive industry, but we want to do it quite or a little bit different. So we worked with Maersk Shipping. I don't know how good this is, but if you look on top of the bridge, there's a small white thing, and this is actually the world's largest container ship on Maersk Line. It takes 20,000 containers. That's a train that is 100 kilometers long. So it's quite a lot of containers. So we help them actually connect the vessels to make transport more efficient. But not only that, so we actually connected also, so this is actually mini GSM network on 600 of their biggest vessels, so they can see in a real time where all the vessels are, they can handle the goods and so on. But we also put 3G modules on the cooling containers. So not only do we know the ships, but we actually know the containers. And moving on, if you think about this, rather than knowing only where the ship are, you can now know where your goods are in a container. And this, if you open this up, this is going to open up for many more business models. I mean, an example is that we say if you want to ship bananas from South America to Europe, and in your other value network, you're selling too many bananas. If you're one of the big grocery shops in Europe, you want to be able to access your container en route and send commands to increase the CO2 level in the container, so those fruit ripens faster. So when they get into the harbor, they're ready to be shipped out to the grocery shops. So, and this is something that Maersk, of course, can't do, but they can expose their capabilities to someone else, to another network, and you can act on things en route. And this container can go on to a truck, and if that truck is connected, you can always see where your goods are, and you can act upon your goods. There are no dead spots anymore. We're also working with remote patient monitoring, and here as well, if everybody's going to work in remote area or live in large cities, I mean, this is obviously a space where a lot of things will happen. I think we actually got a reward here at the M2M Evolution show for our work with AT&T and remote patient monitoring. And here's where you bring in the values of the hospitals and you as a caretaker and caregiver to connect those with devices you bring on when you get back home, and make sure that you take your medicine, but make sure that the medicine is more intelligent. I mean, here's a space that's just amazing, and the reports that I've said and I've seen and so on from the medical companies in terms of how many people actually take the medication, how you want to be able to do medication more on in real time and so on. And the impact that has on patients and everything else is actually enormous. And the cost for society on healthcare and healthcare that is mistreated healthcare or people that don't take care of themselves are absolutely tremendous. And also, lastly, I was going to talk about the sustainable cities on these mega cities. Ericsson is involved in building a whole section of Stockholm called the Royal Seaport, and the idea is by 2030 it's going to be free of fossil fuels and whole climate positive. And here's where something I haven't touched too much about, but everybody needs to collaborate in this. And I just see, Bob, working with Volvo, how interesting to have two different industries coming together and want to create the best type of solutions. Here is where we work with energy companies on the smart gridding, and the building companies of how do you build a city like this, and how do you get transport for these people without having any fossil fuels? How do you connect all these things together? One interesting thing that comes out of this project was what we announced in Barcelona this year is the smart street lights, where we together with Philips and are having base stations in street lights and also actually controlling the street lights themselves more efficiently. I mean, a lot of lights are actually on, but it needs to be on, that you can work more smartly. And this is how, when everything connects, everybody have the city of course have their network of information, their network of resources, their network of assets they want to share with someone else that needs to be connected together. And this is what we call the network society. And you can see all these things come together. We talk about the car. You're in the car for almost 2 hours a day in many countries. And here, if you connect the car to the healthcare, connect the patient, I mean, the car could be an ideal space for a health station to actually monitor your health. They have cameras to see that you don't fall asleep when you drive today. But those cameras can always, should be able to look at your eyes to just see your health data, for instance. So it's the opportunities that arise in the network society are tremendous. And I just wanted to give you a feel for, what will happen and what could happen. And Ericsson is taking a big step to be an absolute leader in this space, in helping all these industries connect not only the devices, but really connect the business. And it comes from our experience being the number one provider of services to the connected industry, the operators or the carriers of the world, with managing their whole industry in terms of top-notch technology, investments in our patents, in our building out the LTE networks of the world, but also in the service space where we actually run networks for almost 1 billion end users today. And I think those are assets that's absolutely crucial to make the businesses transform. And with that, I will say thank you very much for your time.